Okay, we're recording, so we'd like to start the March 21, 2019 Murray City Planning Commission meeting. It's 6:32. And before we start, I'd like to introduce our commissioners this evening. Starting on your right, we have Scott Woodbury, Travis Ney, Phil Markham, Sue Wilson, Lisa Mulkavik, and myself, Ned Hacker. Excused this evening is Maren Patterson. And the staff with us this evening, Jim McNulty, Jared Hall, and Melinda Greenwood. So, before we get started with the formal meeting, I'd have a couple housekeeping things I'd ask you to do, please, and that is to put your electronic devices on silent if you have one. Respect those who are here this evening, and if you have a sidebar or a telephone call, please take it out in the hallway. We'll give those who want to make public comment an opportunity to come to the podium. If you're making comment for yourself, we'd ask you to limit that to 3 minutes, and if you're making comments for a group, to limit that to 5 minutes. So with that, agenda item number 1 is approval of the minutes from the Murray Planning Commission meeting from March 7th, 2019. And I'd ask all the planning commissioners if they've had opportunity to review those minutes and have any comments.
Looks good.
Okay, so I'd ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 7th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Item number 2 is a conflict of interest. I'd ask if any commissioners have a conflict of interest with any items on the agenda this evening.
No.
No. And item number 3 is approval of finding of facts. And again, ask all the commissioners if you had opportunity to read the finding of facts and if you have any corrections to them.
They looked good.
All right, so I'd look for a motion for the approve the finding of facts.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the findings of fact for the following projects. A 4-unit rental townhome project by Fry Construction and Development at 1208 East, 6600 South. They were requesting a conditional use permit. Also a conditional use permit for Atlas Tower to construct a monopole and associated equipment at 314 West Vine Street. And a conditional use permit for Murray Townhomes, a 6-unit rental townhome project to be located at 172 West 6100 South. And finally, a conditional use permit for Urban Auto LLC for an auto sales business at 60th South and 300 West.
All right, so I have a motion. A second. Any other discussion? No. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So, agenda item number 4. Gloria Haley, Interior Design, is requesting a certificate of appropriateness to allow major alteration of the building located at the property address 166 East Vine Street. Has asked if the applicant is here this evening. We'll ask you to come up a little later. And staff report is by Jared Hall.
Thank you. So this is a fun project. This is a 0.71 acre site. It's often associated with the Murray First Ward building and some of those other buildings in that block because it sits very close to them. It is on its own parcel, though, that is 0.71 acres. Runs through from Vine Street to Arlington Avenue. You can see that here. Vine Street's at the top of the screen. The building, the Carnegie Library, the original library, is right here. As we talk about the project, we're going to talk about this. They call it the Annex, but a big addition that was built in 1970 onto the building as well. And then the property, as I said, runs out to Arlington Avenue. Some parking located in the rear. This is in the MCCD zone, so as you're aware, and I'll just state for the public record and for folks that are here that aren't familiar with the process, the MCCD zone is a little bit different, the city center district. It requires what's called a certificate of appropriateness to be approved. The uses that Gloria is proposing, interior design and office space, are all permitted, so she could move in tomorrow in terms of the business licensing. However, It requires this, she wants to renovate the building, and that's a major alteration as we look at it, so we have to go through this process of certificate of appropriateness. The applicant proposes to refurbish the building, and we'll get to the elevations and things in just a moment, but I just wanted to talk about the site for just a second. Again, there is this is a site plan showing the existing site, so the Carnegie Library itself, and we have some information about the history of that in the packet for you, built in 1908. Some ladies from Murray, the Women's Club, got together and petitioned the Carnegie Foundation for money to build that library and got the first public library in Murray built at that location. So it's a great historic building, built in 1916, finally. That building is still right here. It's been remodeled over the years, and the original corner of the building is taken up by a vestibule here that was connected to the addition that was done in 1970. The applicant wants to pull that back. This is the proposed site plan. Not a lot changes to the footprint, except that reduction happens there at that front corner. To expose that original corner of the building, that would make it eligible for the National Register, and they could maybe look for some tax credits and things like that. So they want to get started on that, pull that corner back, redo that vestibule to allow the exposition of that corner and to make some of that remodeling, that renovation possible. And then in the rear, they'd add a vestibule entrance here, and then eventually an atrium, a small fountain and garden area that goes with the parking area that's going to need to be repaved and striped. So most of the exterior work will involve the building itself. There will be just a few changes to the site, but they're very minor, really, in total. We can come back to this slide as we need to, but just to get to some of the interior stuff that the applicant wants to do. So there are two levels to the library. The lower level of the main library building, the original library building, would be carved up into office space, cubicle areas, workstations for employees, with some room for expansion, as I remember right. And then the upper space with an office, conference room, lobby area. Part of her remodeling plans involve exposing the original staircase. If you look at, we'll look at some photos in a moment, but that original staircase that went into the building was covered up in that remodeling as well. She'd like to reopen that and use it eventually. That would lead to the main lobby, and then from there, you can actually enter that library portion, both of those floors, through staircases in this main vestibule or through an elevator that she's going to be adding to comply with ADA requirements. The annex space, that big addition that was done in 1970, would be used for cooperative workspace. It's a small kitchen back there, a couple of ADA restrooms, and some exhibition space if they need that as well. It is an interior design firm, so they have lots of storage of materials they want to be able to display for people and show, etc. So that's the interior remodel. Now, the original building, the corner down here, the right-hand corner, that's a photograph of the original historic building. You can see the staircase that's gone now, that's been removed. This is a photo of how the site sits currently. This is that entrance that we looked at, coming from Vine Street and running around the back side of the building, the annex portion. What the applicant proposes to do is to renovate that, to expose that original brick and restore it. Take the mansard roofs off. You can see those here and here on the annex building as well. She'd remove both of those mansards and expose that cornice work that was done on the original building and add some simple brickwork, cornice work to the annex building to make it match. That's that vestibule pulled back and improved a bit, and the original staircase restored. The windows, too, make a big difference. Those have been modified over the years, so those will be wood mullions and things like that. So the renovation is really nice. It restores it back to the way it was in 1916. So we're very supportive of that as staff. It would be a wonderful thing for us to do. I did want to just show you one other thing as we talked about that. This access from Vine Street. So with the parking, angled parking, to get 23 stalls, and we analyzed the parking there for you, that'll be more than we require. We would require, I want to say we would require 15 for this use. 23 is what she's proposing. That should be more than adequate in this zone. It does mean, though, that the flow of traffic onto the site would be one direction from Vine Street around the back to the parking. There is on-street parking on Vine Street. It's a little tight. They don't have a lot of client traffic in and out. It's pretty limited. It's mostly employees coming to the site. So did want to point that out, though. Staff is recommending approval of the renovation, of the certificate of appropriateness to allow the renovation, this major alteration. We think it meets the goals and the objectives of the general plan and of the MCCD zone. We do have some conditions. We went over some of those in the work meeting with you. Gloria's had the staff report, and we've had a couple of meetings that we've gone over some of these things as well with the MCC Design Review Committee, with the History Advisory Board. Gloria met with them as well. They were very supportive of the project, both of those groups, and have recommended positively. We do have just these 6 conditions to go forward. So we are recommending approval. Do you have any questions for staff at this point?
I do have one question. So can you go back to the site plan?
Yeah.
I noticed that they've got a dumpster enclosure, but I don't see any sort of screening area for that.
Right here.
Yeah,
Yeah, we would require that normally through the permit. I didn't actually include that in the
in the conditions. Okay.
But we would through the permit process as well. So. Anything else?
Any other questions?
No. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, applicant, come forward and provide us your name and your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Gloria Haley Coomer. My home address, or
Sure.
okay, it's 4531 South Country Lane Road, Mill Creek, Utah, 84117.
All right, and have you been able to review the conditions of approval?
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we may have an additional one to screen in the dumpster.
Correct.
Would you like to add anything to Jared's presentation?
I'm not typically sure what you would add. I do hope this project can be successful. You know, right now I am at the spot where the owner is antsy. He doesn't realize all the approvals you have to get through, so he kind of might pull out of the contract because of how long it takes, and that would be very unfortunate. I'll find that out tomorrow if he decides to pull out. He just doesn't realize the process for a historic commercial property.
Okay.
But if he does agree to our addendum, then I do interior classical architecture. I work on historical projects, and this is something that's really important to me to preserve history, and especially Carnegie Library. So even our shelving is going to look like library shelving. We want, if someone from the public came in, to feel like they were actually walking into the library. We hope to maybe have a couple venues like that, so the public could at least, see the space. We use a lot of shelving, like Jared said, for fabrics and whatnot, and so we think we can pull that off and have it be a neat look. So,
Great.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
So I'll open up the meeting for public comment regarding this particular item. Would anyone like to make public comment regarding the item at hand? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. There's one. Oh, excuse me. Come forward, please. Thank you.
My name is Bob Wager. I live at 4873 South, 1130 West. But I do own the building next door, the old Murray Post Office. It was our real estate office for many years, and now it's a management company. And I'm just like to say to Gloria, whatever I can do to be a better neighbor, let me know. I'll give you my card. I'm semi-retired, but sounds great. As long as we can. The parking's a little tight on my building too, so we got to make sure we don't kind of abuse each other. And I'll let my people know. So, very.
Most of my clients, I go to them, and occasionally they might come to the office, or we have architectural representatives that are there for 20 minutes or an hour. But we don't do a lot of walking traffic.
Should be a match made in heaven. So, welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Other public comments regarding this item? Now I don't see any more. So close public comment and bring it back up to the commission for any discussion.
I don't think we actually have to do the dumpster as a condition. Jared said it was just part of
The permit.
Okay,
the permitting
All right.
process. So,
perfect.
so I think we're fine with the 6 conditions. And
All right.
I think it's a good.
Any
So-
other discussion?
Well, I'd just like to say as a general comment, I think it's a beautiful
Yeah.
project that you're proposing here.
Yep.
I really like the scaling. I like the new vestibule and what you're recommending there. I think you've got great reciprocity in the design. I like it. I hope you're able to move forward with it.
Also, pending approval, I realize we haven't taken a vote yet, but in the event that this is approved, I would really encourage you to utilize staff to maybe help the landowner understand the permit process. I think they would be more than happy to assist in making this project a reality. Okay. I would hope so. It never hurts to ask.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I hope that you can convince the landowner to see the vision of what a great thing this would be. I mean, it's not only a great thing for your business, but for his equity in the building to restore it to its former splendor. I mean, it would just make it a beacon. So, I hope this is successful.
It's all been said well, so I'll just say I agree.
And I'll just add that I'll make a motion
All
that
right.
that we approve a certificate of appropriateness allowing the proposed major alteration and restoration for the property located at 166 East Vine Street, subject to conditions 1 through 6.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? So Jared, could you call a roll call vote?
Mr. Woodbury,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hackett.
Yes. All right, so motion passes, and again, I would,
luck.
pardon me?
I just said good luck. We're excited.
Thank you.
So-
So motion passes, and thank you for taking efforts to restore this building. It's a great effort, wonderful historic building, and good luck. We look to see it all fresh and new in the future. Thank you.
Very exciting.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 5, Maria Guadalupe Fisher Auto Sales, requesting conditional use permit to allow for an auto sales business to be located at the property address 4195 South, 500 West, in units number 31 and 32. So Jared Hall is going to make this request.
Okay, thank you. So, as you said, this is a request for a conditional use permit to allow auto sales in the MG zone. The property is located in what we commonly refer to as Garco, an industrial complex down on 5th West. The subject properties of this particular application are units 31 and 32. They've been used together for other businesses in the past, so interior walls have been removed previously. Each unit in Garco is 900 square feet, so it's an 1,800 square foot total space. There's a small restroom and a small office, so you wind up with about 1,600 and some odd square feet in open area. The total parking requirement for this project in the MG zone works out to be 3 spaces. There are 4 because there's 2 spaces per unit. There are 2 overhead doors leading in. You can see those on this simple site plan. The parking in between those, that CP is for customer parking indicating. So the small office again right there, and there's actually a restroom shown, not pictured, but it's right in here. So they have more than the parking that we would require for the auto sales, assuming that all cars are stored inside the building. That is Ms. Guadalupe Fisher's intent, to keep the cars for sale inside and keep the customer parking, employee parking outside the building. So we've conditioned our recommendation on that, keeping the cars inside. We estimate that there should be no more than 6 cars kept for sale on the property in order to keep those cars from spilling out onto the property or needing to be moved and left outside while other cars are maneuvered in and out a lot, so that we don't clog up those traffic lanes. Garco is difficult to get in and out of, difficult to move around in, so we want to do everything we can to keep there from being a lot of cars clogging up these travel lanes. That concerns the fire department a lot. They're part of the requirement for 6 cars only for sale. The other condition that you might notice that's in the conditions of approval that we've recommended is that we want to, it's not really a condition so much as putting the applicant on notice that they're not allowed to park cars on 5th West as a part of this business. That happens sometimes. It causes a problem for traffic and visibility. We'd like to see that not happen anymore, so we've included it with the conditions of approval. With that said, we are recommending approval based on these 7 conditions, including those things that we just spoke about. One of those parking spaces does need to be restriped they'll all need to be restriped. It's in very poor condition. So as they restripe those stalls that they have, one of them needs to be made an ADA van accessible. That's most easily done by striping or hash striping. I'm not sure how you say that, but striping in here to indicate that loading and offloading area in front of one of those overhead doors. We've allowed that in the past. So, any questions for staff at this point?
Jared, I just wanted to make very clear that this application and permit would be for sales of cars only, no
Sales
repairs, no refurb, anything like that.
That's right. There's not an existing repair business. There's no detailing. This is for sales only.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? All right, is the applicant here? Would you come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Maria Guadalupe Fisher, and the address is 4195 South, 500 West, shop number 31 and 32, Murray.
All right, and have you been able to review these 7 conditions for approval?
Yes.
And are you able to comply with those?
Yeah.
All right. Would you like to add anything to Jared's report?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I will open this agenda item for public comment. Does anyone like to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period and ask if the commission have any additional questions, comments, discussion.
Nope. I'll make a motion.
That would be good.
You're on a roll.
All right. I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow an auto sales business on the property located at 4195 South, 500 West, units 31 and 32, subject to conditions 1 through 7.
All right, I have
I'll
a
second.
motion, a second. Any additional discussion? So I'd ask Jared again to provide a roll call vote.
Mr. Woodbury,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Nag,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So, motion passes. Thank you for doing business in Murray, and good luck. All right. So, agenda item number 6. Steward Primary Care requesting conditional use permit to allow a monument sign with electronic message center to be installed at the property address 5989 South Fashion Boulevard. 5980,
Oh,
5980 South, yeah.
5980. Good, thank you. So is the applicant here this evening? Great, we'll ask you to come up in a little bit. So staff report, Jared's going to give us a staff report.
And I'm sitting down for the rest of the evening after this, so you don't need to be concerned about my health. It's all right. It's going to be fun.
Exercise.
This is a simple application for an EMC sign. You can actually see the sign out in front of the building. This is the subject property. There's actually 3 properties. We'll come back to that briefly in a moment. You can see the sign right there. That arrow, white arrow, is the top of the monument sign that exists out there. What the applicants would like to do, just real quickly, this is the CD zone. So the blue is the GO zone, the general office zone. We don't allow EMC signs in the general office, but we do in the CD zone. So it was fortunate for them in this request that they're in that zoning across the street. It does require, however, this conditional use permit request. What they'd like to do is take that existing sign and add a couple of feet to the top of that, attach an LED sign to the top of both of those faces to make that EMC portion. In doing so, it's about 2 feet. It doesn't increase in size that we wouldn't allow in area or in height. The only thing that we are requesting, and just to show you here, this is the existing sign, and then they would just simply add that digital sign above it and change the sign below, this portion of the sign below. In doing that, the only thing that we're requesting is that the sign be moved back. It's about 3.5 feet from the property line. The regulations are for 5. So as it sits right now, it's not conforming. We were not able to find a building permit for the sign, so we can't simply establish it as a non-conforming sign and get an expansion for that. So we're going to have it moved back to meet that 5-foot separation requirement. Otherwise, it's separated appropriately from the access to the property, which is down here on the south. In all other ways, it does meet the requirements of the zoning. It's closer than 500 feet to residential zoning, so it will have to be turned off after 10 p.m. and dim after sundown, et cetera, and there's those rules that involve the operation of the sign. Those have all been included in requirement number 5, recommended condition number 5. The others involve just those things we mentioned, that it does need to be moved back to meet the 5-foot requirement, the 5-foot required setback from the property line along Fashion Boulevard. And if the project is worth more than $5,000 or is valued at more than $5,000, the city engineer is going to require that they look at the curb and gutter and sidewalk, replace anything that's damaged. That's a standard for any project. So we haven't had that assessment yet. If that assessment comes back as more than $5,000, we'll have to do that. Any questions for staff?
Questions? No questions. All right.
Thank you.
Would the applicant come forward and state your name and address for the record, please?
Hello, my name is Josh Patterson. Address is 2079 South, 1200 East, Unit 103, Salt Lake City, 84105.
And have you been able to review the conditions for approval?
I have. I reviewed the 6 conditions for approval.
And are you able to comply with those conditions?
I have one request, well, 2 requests. Condition 4, the minimum 5-foot setback. If we were to split the EMC sign from the existing monument, have it be its own structure, and set that back 5 foot rather than moving the whole monument, would that be an acceptable means of addressing the code?
Doesn't that make it 2 signs?
We're only allowed one detached sign per property, so that wouldn't work. You'd have to
Okay.
get rid of the other and build a new sign.
Okay.
All right. Would you like to add any additional comments to the report?
The only other question was the condition number 6, consolidating the 3 parcels. So with moving that monument back, we have some docs that are coming in that are very excited to meet the community, serve the community, and that's where this whole EMC sign is coming from. It's to better connect to current patients and future patients. So the EMC wasn't an initial scope item with our full renovation that we've already permitted and actually completed. We have C of O already. So we're trying to better connect to our future clientele. So this was an added cost that wasn't expected. Moving the sign would be an added cost that wasn't expected. And then with the consolidation of the 3 parcels, that was another $4,000 for surveying that wasn't expected. So I'm not trying to, make this tough on anyone by any means. We're here to help serve the community, meet everyone we can. The doc is looking to advertise opening meetings and barbecues and better connect with everyone in the community. So thoughts on being able to, if we were to shrink down our panel on the monument itself, would that provide us the ability to not have to consolidate our parcels?
Okay. Thank you. Jared, would you like to address any more of those, the setback, okay,
Yeah.
I can do that. All right, I'll open the agenda item for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and come back to you, Jared.
So let me take them one at a time. The first one being the size. If we reduce the size of the EMC overall, does that give us any ability to not? It's not really, the size of the EMC is not related to the combination of the parcels, because these separate parcels, you actually have enough frontage on the property, right? I'm going to go to the one that doesn't have all the distracting colors on it. There's enough frontage right here to allow the size of sign that you're proposing. So it's not related to that, and that's part of the staff report that's hard to get your head around. We're not requiring, or we're not asking for a recommendation that it be required to combine the parcels in order to allow that part of the sign. When conditional use permits are reviewed, we try to get what we can brought into compliance, and the separate, sometimes it is the case that you need all of that frontage to get the size that you're asking for. In this case, it's not. So we've asked for the consolidation beyond what we would normally ask for, because it's just a part of conditional uses. My recommendation is that should stand. We probably, in making an addition to the building, we would absolutely require it. Susan wrote this report, and we talked about this somewhat. If we were proposing an addition to the building, we would absolutely require it. We have, the concern that we have, and the reason that we're trying to get it done, is not so much for planning and zoning's sake with respect to the sign, because it's not required for the size that they're proposing, rather for building department. That property line goes through the middle of that building, which is a bad situation for building permits and things like that, and we'd like to see that fixed. However, it is not, strictly speaking, required for this sign area, as the applicant mentioned. The second part of the request, or the question, was lost to me now. Sorry.
Reducing the size of the sign.
Yeah, reducing the size wouldn't change that. And the reason that we're asking for it, sorry, I kind of moved right from the one to the other, is not related to the size.
So, Jared,
Any change to a sign like this, just to be clear, any change to this sign, because it is in the wrong position, if you wanted to make it bigger and it wasn't an EMC, if you came in for a building permit next week to make it 2 feet taller without the EMC part of it, we would still require you to move it back to the 5 foot. Moving the sign is an absolute for us. It needs to be 5 feet from the property line.
if it's changed, right?
If any change happens.
Right.
We're not going to show up and rip it out of the ground or require that you do, but if you want to make any changes to it, whether it's EMC or otherwise, we
Right.
would require
And Jared, it's one sign per parcel?
it. It is one sign per parcel, yeah.
Okay, so in theory, he could put it on the other if they weren't combined, but since we're saying they need to combine them,
If they came back in for a permit to do a second sign and put it over here,
you would still say no because
I'd
they'd
still
have
say
to.
no because of that property line problem.
But they could throw one on the back one. They could combine the front two, and I mean, I know that doesn't help him. I just want to understand. I want to understand the ordinance and the guidelines.
Sure.
So it's one sign per
One detached.
parcel, one detached sign
One detached sign per property.
per property.
And so,
Okay.
you know, you could make an argument. We'd have to make that determination if it was asked. It hasn't been asked.
Right.
My initial response is that if I'm the planner in the office that day making that determination, I'd say this is a property. You're using three parcels as
Right.
a single property. You get one detached. sign.
Well, and I mean, since the property line runs down the middle of the building, I think it's easy to see that it is. But then that's just, as we discussed in the previous, that's an administrative thing. He doesn't have to come back here to get them all
No.
combined. Okay. All right, thank you. I just wanted to understand a little bit more.
It's still a cost, like you mentioned, because there's survey work that has to be done to do that.
Certainly. What, you don't just go off the PowerPoint presentation?
The county's not willing to accept that.
Oh, okay. I just
As
wasn't
wonderful as the
sure.
PowerPoint is.
Commissioner
Because
Hacker.
they typically line up so well, so.
They do, yeah, pretty good.
You know.
But yeah, that's what I have. I don't know if that answers your question about that or not.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, wait 1 second. Go ahead.
Oh, so this situation is unfortunate, and it's obvious that this should have been adjusted or consolidated into one property before the building permit was issued. I believe there was a permit issued for the structure in 1987, but there was no permit ever issued for the sign associated, which would have been even a separate permit back then because it's not part of the building, it's detached. So this is unfortunate. This is our way of trying to clean the property up. You know, we were informed that there's 3 property tax notices probably being mailed out to the property owners. I would concur with what Jared has said. It's just trying to clean it up and make it meet our ordinance. The other thing is, if he was quoted that amount, $4,000, I would check with some other surveying companies because we've seen lot consolidations done closer to $1,000 and $1,500, somewhere in that range. So I would check on that before you just go with the first person. So
Yes, and then
you.
I would just question, is a survey required to by Murray City to consolidate?
It is, only because they have to, these parcels, the way they sit, they're already described. What's not been described, the survey is to describe that new parcel that gets created by the combination. That's not been done, that survey.
Oh, okay, so
that
you
would-
don't have 3 descriptions?
Well, we do, but we have to describe, to get past the county's requirements, we have to describe the new single parcel that's created when you get rid of those interior lines. So
Okay.
this has been described. My finger's not working.
So that might even be something a title company could do.
You know, they have surveyors that work for them that would do it. It's not going to cheapen it up to go to the title company first. They're going to have a surveyor do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I would look at a lot of options before I wrote my check for $4,000. In my opinion.
Sure. That's a good, I'm glad you brought that up.
And I'd also like to discuss or point out that there's within 6 months, so it doesn't all have to be on the same paycheck.
And
If
we
can
didn't,
spread
and
this
that's the
out.
reason that we did that was because we weren't tying it to the size of the sign like you mentioned. If you reduce the size, does it help? It really doesn't. It doesn't. It's not why we required it. We required it because it's running through the building.
I guess if it was a sticking point that just made or breaks the decision, we could discuss 9 months versus 6 months,
More time is not a problem for us. We just want to see it done eventually.
if that needs, I think 6 is fair too, but if we need to have a discussion, we could discuss that.
I wouldn't object to that, to more time. Anything
All right.
else?
Any other questions for Jared? All right. I would entertain a motion regarding this agenda item.
I guess we don't have to have clarification on that discussion, right? We can just roll with it? Okay, then I want to make a motion. Where is it? Where is it? Right here. Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. It's okay. That we recommend that the Planning Commission approve a conditional, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow an electronic message sign at the property address, this microphone's horrible, 5980 South Fashion Boulevard, subject to the six conditions discussed.
I'll second.
All right. Have a motion and a second. Any additional Discussion? All right, Jared, would you call a roll call vote?
Number 6. Did we need to?
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Nay?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes. So, motion passes, and we'll continue to watch this and see where we go with the sign. Thank you for doing business in Murray. All right, agenda item number 7. Utah Water Gardens requesting conditional use permit to allow the operation of an aquatic nursery on the property address 5901 and 5911 South, 1300 East. And is the applicant here this evening? Thank you. We'll ask you to come up later, and Jim McNulty is going to present the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Hacker. So we're pleased to present this item tonight. The Planning Commission will recall that we held the rezoning hearing for this property in December. I believe it was our last public hearing of year 2018. This is a unique application. First of all, the rezoning was from R110 to agriculture because they had an acre of property and they wanted to do a business related with the home on the property and the existing outbuildings. So pretty unique. The properties are 5901 and 5911 South, 1300 East, adjacent to Cottonwood High School. You can see the property there as depicted on the aerial. You can see the zoning still shows R110 because it's so fresh. It just went to the council in January. It is currently zoned ag, but we've not been able to update our main zoning maps with GIS at this point. This is a little hard to read, and I wish it would have come in a little bit darker, but your staff report covers this. You see the house, that is building 1. You see the multi-purpose or multi-use building, that's building 2. And then you see the existing garage or building, the community building, and then you see an area there in the back. So this is kind of the existing situation associated with the site. And then this is what they're proposing. So you would see the house would remain, and Mr. Chris McGuire is here this evening. He is the applicant. They would live in and occupy the home. And then you have the second building in the back, which was historically used as a duplex that would be renovated and used for a public restroom, office, and storage space. And then the building in the middle, which is a storage type barn area that would be used for retail as well as a store selling product associated with the water garden application. And then the greenhouse that would be in the southeast corner of the property. That's over 4,200 square feet in size, and that's where a lot of the product that they would be selling to people that come on site or taking on site to do ponds and botanical gardens for folks, a lot of it would be grown there. So some of the things that come into play here, you see the existing situation, and now this overlay shows the parking. Now they will be required with the associated buildings and business to have 18 parking spaces according to our land use ordinance. That's what you see here. You see a total of 18 parking spaces if you were to count out, as well as an ADA or handicap parking space adjacent to building number 3, which would be paved and permanent. Now the access drive on the north end of the site is 25 feet in width, hard surface. The access drive on the south end is only 17 feet wide, but hard surface as well. We're recommending and actually requiring through our fire code, our fire inspector, as well as engineering standards, that we have to have the 24 feet of drive aisle with their hard surface when you have 90-degree parking back-to-back for backup and turning movements. That is a code requirement, so we're asking that they do that. And we've made the applicant aware of that. I want to show you some of the existing buildings. So that's the barn building that you see in the upper left, and then this would be what they propose to change it to, kind of a store or retail area where people could come in and buy product in that particular building. And then this is the greenhouse building, just kind of a depiction of it. I don't know how accurate it is. It's interesting drawing, but that building will have to be structurally engineered, and calculations will have to be provided to our building officials, so it would be prior to approving it. The other thing is, going back to building 2, where they propose to do the public restrooms and storage space, that will have to meet ADA requirements as well, and they may have to do a ramp or a stairway with handrails, whatever is required by the building official to make that ADA compliant. Again, here's some pictures that we showed you back when we did the rezone of the current situation. You know, upper left-hand picture, you can see a portion of the home. The middle picture, the existing brick home. And then you see the frontage in the lower bottom of 13th East. And then the pictures to the right are some of the existing buildings which would remain on site. And then just the overall, it's kind of cool. You see the softball diamond there associated with Cottonwood High School, and then also a baseball field. So staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit for the Aquatic Nursery business located at the addresses of 5901 and 5911 South at 1300 East, subject to the 13 conditions of approval. Do you have any questions of staff?
Jim, in the pre-meeting, you know, we talked about the parking area on that, associated with that south entrance and exit.
Yeah.
And if the stalls were angled at 45 degrees, would they lose some of that parking? And would that make a difference on the width of that?
I don't believe so. That's something they could work with us on.
If they did that, that could possibly mean that they wouldn't have to widen that 17-foot access, correct?
Correct. So the access for 45-degree angle parking, because, you know, it's not 90, it's 45.
Right.
15 foot wide, and they have 17. So we could work with them on achieving that, because we're saying that the parking stalls themselves or parking areas can be in the gravel area, but the permanent drive access or the loop for fire and emergency vehicle access has to be paved.
Understand completely.
So I think we can work with them, you know, over in the office to try to achieve what works for them
we
best.
wouldn't want to change any conditions, but
Right.
that is something that could be massaged.
Correct.
I have a question along that line of thought, though. I thought earlier we stated that, because we had that discussion, if it was at diagonal, if it would be different numbers, but it was a gravel area, so they're not going to actually stripe it, so we have to assume, make some assumptions. So can we assume diagonal parking, or is it?
Well, I mean, it's something we can look at, and we'll involve our city engineer. I mean, we have that space. We can put it on the diagonal. I think we can achieve the same 18 spaces, but it helps them with the drive aisle width because they have 17-foot paved. So it's something where we can allow them some cost savings because they're putting so much into the project to be here and to be a permanent fixture in Murray City.
If we can,
So-
that's great.
Yes.
Can I have one point of clarification? Sorry. It's agriculture, so they don't have any landscaping buffers up to the parking area. They can build right up directly to the private drive there on the south end.
That's correct.
Okay.
The only landscape requirement, and I didn't go through that, but it's in the staff report and conditioned, is they have to meet the landscape requirement along the 13th East frontage. So there will be a couple trees and some bushes that need to be put in, but it's pretty minimal, and we can work with them on that as well.
Perfect.
Any other questions for Jim?
No.
All right. Thank you. Applicant, come up and state your name again and your address for the record.
My name is Chris McGuire. I live at 5901 South, 1300 East.
And have you had opportunity to review these 13 conditions for approval?
Yes, I have.
And are you able to comply with them?
Yes, I am.
And would you like to add anything in addition to the report?
You know, we just appreciate everyone's help. We're excited to join the community. And I think, yeah, that's everything.
All right. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Play baseball?
I don't.
You don't? What's your
a weird
greenhouse going to be
question.
made out of? No,
Yeah,
I have very, What's your greenhouse?
Behind the pitcher's mound.
Polycarbonate, okay.
Yeah.
You're just right on the practice field,
Yeah.
and foul balls, you're in the
exactly.
hot zone, so I know you've got some trees back there that'll help protect, but
Yeah.
But I understand any ball that comes into your property belongs to you.
yes.
So you can
Keep
sell
the
them back
balls,
to the
yeah.
high school.
Feed them to fish.
Side business.
There's also one clarification on the site map in the front where it says landscaping. We wanted to put a pond up there with two waterfalls that kind of face each direction of the oncoming traffic.
That's landscaping on steroids.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were going to also put a fence around the pond. I figured that you guys would ask that, so just wanted to clarify that.
That's great.
County Health Department would require that around any body of water, so we can work with you on that design and how you would fence it.
Okay. And then it's, you know, it is a huge project, so we're getting things done little by little, so I just want everyone to be aware of that, so.
All right. Thank you very much.
We're excited for the business.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will now open this agenda item up for public comment. Are there any public comments regarding this? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and ask commissioners if you have additional discussion
I'll make a motion.
or a motion.
I make a motion to approve a conditional use permit for the the proposed aquatic nursery business for the properties addressed 5901 and 5911 South, 1300 East, subject to conditions 1 through 13.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, Jared or Jim, would you, Jared? All right, thank you.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right. So motion passes, and we thank you for doing your business. We look forward to buying aquatic products at your business in the future. It looks like a great project. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 8, Wild Rose Subdivision requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval for the property located at 5668 South Bullion Street. So applicant is here. We'll ask you to come up in a little bit, and Jim McNulty will present the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Hacker. Again, this is an exciting project. This is one that the Planning Commission held a public hearing in November for rezoning of this property. It was zoned agricultural and has recently been rezoned to R18 as per the city's general plan, which allows for low-density single-family residential. This is the property as outlined above off of the corner of Bullion Street and Aaron Park Circle. Here is our zoning map. This layer of the zoning map has been reflected to show the correct zoning. So it is R18, as indicated previously, and you can see the ag across the street. So this was the current property situation up until recently. You can see the 2 single-family homes as well as a number of agricultural buildings. Since this map was done, most of those buildings have been removed at this point in time. So if we go to the preliminary and final subdivision plat, actually preliminary, they'll be working on the final with engineering staff prior to recordation if approved. You can see that a number of those buildings have been removed. Let me go to that. Well, it still shows the actual buildings, I apologize, but they have been removed based on a site visit and going out there and taking a look. Those buildings no longer exist. We have 3 new lots being proposed, a total of 5 lots in this subdivision. Existing lot 1 is Mr. Rezak's residence, and that lot would remain over 28,000 square feet. Lot 2 is a family member or Mr. Rezak's son. On that lot, just over 15,000 square feet. And then you see lots 3, 4, and 5, which far exceed the R18 requirements as far as lot area. They range in size from 11,000 square feet to just over 19,000 square feet. So very good sized lots here being proposed. The other thing is a number of improvements are available and located in Aaron Park Circle, such as sewer and water and things of that nature. However, and the asphalt has been put in at a full width. The dedication and requirement of curb gutter, park strip, sidewalk, that type of thing will be required with the dedication here of the plat. They'll be working with Trey Stokes, our city engineer, to achieve that. Here are some pictures from the site. You can see a lot of the buildings have been removed. These were taken pretty recently, probably last week with our snowstorms. But a lot of those buildings, if you had taken a look at this site when the rezoning occurred, there's a major difference here. Major cleanup. The property looks completely different at this point in time. Again, we believe that this is a great opportunity, a little infill project, which will allow for 3 new single-family homes in our community. Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval for preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Wild Rose subdivision, address 5668 South Bullion Street, subject to the 6 conditions of approval as per the staff report and above on the overhead for your review. Any questions of staff? And the applicants are here.
Excuse me, would the applicant come forward and state your name and address for the record?
That's fine.
Sure.
My name is Anton Rizak, 5668 South Ordinance Street.
Thank you, sir. So I'd ask if you've had an opportunity to read and review the conditions for approval.
Let me indicate that my name is Randon Wilson. I'm an attorney at Dorsey and Whitney. My office is at 111 South Main in Salt Lake.
That's my office.
21st floor. I'm not only counsel, I've been friends with the Rezaks for many years. We've had an opportunity to review the requirements, and we're able to comply with those. We have a few things yet to do. We've torn the buildings down. We've acquired that protection strip that had been set there for many years ago. Cost us quite a lot, but it's been acquired. We have the plan in mind to put the sidewalk and the strip along, the grass strip along the three lots, of course, the two back ones and the one near the front will access the utilities on the street there. But we're able to comply with all of those. We think they're reasonable. We very much appreciate the earlier rezoning, and we do think that this will make for a nice addition to the neighborhood there.
Thank you. All right. I will open this item for public comment. Is there any public here to comment? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period and ask commissioners if you have any questions, additional discussion, or look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the mayor for the proposed Wild Rose preliminary and final subdivision on the property addressed 5668 South Bullion Street, subject to the 6 conditions listed in the application.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion.
I'd like to second that motion.
Second. Any additional discussion? Jared, I'd ask for you to call vote.
Yes.
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 I would like to ask one question. Rose, you're okay with it being called the Wild Rose subdivision? All right. Just so you're okay with it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. It should be a great project. So, all right. Last agenda item, number 9, Sustainable Development Practices, request draft proposed text amendments to the Murray City Land Use Ordinance. And Melinda Greenwood is going to present.
Members of the commission, thank you. I'll beg your patience tonight as I am pinch hitting for Doug Hill. And so I'll do my best to answer any questions you have about the text amendment here. But the State of Utah Department of Facilities Construction Management came and gave a presentation to the Committee of the Whole, to the Council 2 weeks ago, and I was present for that. I'm going to show a few slides that they presented from that evening, and I will just explain briefly that we're going somewhat out of order with this text amendment to try and just be expedient with the fact that we are currently designing the city hall and trying to get this put into place before we're too far along in that process to have the ordinances be applicable. So, excuse me. A brief background is that the MCCD zone has a sustainability requirement in the ordinance currently to have government buildings built to a LEED Silver standard. And as we have embarked on the process of building the new fire station, the discovery has been that process is very costly. And specifically, there's ongoing requirements to maintain a certification. And so considering the fact that the fire station is going to cost about maybe a fifth of what the new city hall will cost, we wanted to be more responsible with taxpayer dollars and still find a way to have a sustainable building, but yet not have some of the expenditures that come along with the LEED process. So the state of Utah has had in place, I think since 2004, what they call high performance building standards. And as we worked with our consultants, the architect and also the contractor, they've recommended this process. They've had experience building buildings to this standard, and so it's the standard that the state currently uses. Mostly you would see these buildings already constructed on university campuses, so up at Utah State in Logan, here with the University of Utah and UVSC. So the newer buildings that are being constructed that the state owns will be done to these standards. So just real briefly, and again, beg your patience because I didn't put this this PowerPoint together, and I'm presenting someone else's material, and some of it's kind of technical as well. So, so again, the Division of Facilities Construction Management has had this program on the books for several years called the High Performance Building Standard. And one of the main differences between LEED and the HPBS is that there's a greater focus of inside the building envelope, whereas a lot of LEED focuses on outside as well. And the thought behind that is just that the greatest efficiency really is realized inside the building with energy savings. So there's an integrated process that we are actually going through right now, where we work with the contractor, the design, the architects, and it's a collective process where we're working with our facilities management, trying to understand all the needs and then build or design a building to be as efficient as possible. And we do that through a lot of different parameters, but the site design, energy efficiencies, water efficiency, and then through using sustainable materials. Okay, there we go. So this gives just a little bit more detail about the collective process, but you can see here that it's just kind of in the middle is the high performance buildings, and on the outset is you have the design team, the construction team, the contractor, the user groups. We're all working collectively to make sure that whatever is built is going to meet our needs, but also be sustainable. The estimates with the high performance building standards is that the energy savings would be about 20%. And they run energy models to get all that figured out. They also estimate that over the life cycle of the building.
How does that compare to the LED silver certification?
I think it's really comparable. The big difference between the two is just the LEED is kind of that name brand fancy, so you can get just as good of a vehicle with a with a Dodge as you can with the Tesla versus the Dodge.
How about Lexus versus Toyota?
There we go.
There
Thank
you go.
you. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, and really, that's what it is. It's the name brand. I mean, you still get a quality car, a quality building. It meets the needs. It accomplishes the purpose. But one of the findings is that it would cost about 1% of the building cost to build to the standard. And so when you're building a $25 million building, which is probably what it'll end up being, 1% is $250,000. And that's a lot of money. So especially when there's a lot of other needs, and then there's ongoing recertification costs with LEED that you wouldn't have with this. And a couple of things to note on that is, one, the high performance buildings doesn't have like a certification. There's no cost to it. It's just, here's the standards that are in place, and we meet the standards. The other thing is that with the LEED certification, you can lose your certification because those standards change. And so we could build the building tomorrow, and next year they change standards, and if we don't change the building and make adaptations with the building to meet those standards, we lose the certification level.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
So what? So what if we build to that standard and then we just let it lapse? There's no penalty in doing it. You just have to take your little stamp off the wall.
Well, and
You still get the efficiency. You still get.
Well, is it a certificate? Same line of thought. Is it a certificate they want you to renew yearly because things in the building change yearly? Like you change all your light bulbs and you're no longer energy efficient.
So
Or is it-
yeah, so there's a couple things. So one is that you're kind of trying to say, this is Mickey Mouse, and it looks exactly like Mickey Mouse, but we don't want to pay the Disney licensing, or we can't pay the Disney licensing. And so there's some issues with that, but in essence, the standards really are the same, with the exception of the focus inside the building rather than outside. So LEED has quite a few certifications with outside the building, like the parking with the electric vehicles, those types of things. The focus really is on inside the building instead of outside. So I don't necessarily think it's like a lower level of sustainability. It's just a different program.
I have tons of questions. Should I wait till you're done, or can I start asking a couple?
Well, let's go through the rest, and
Okay.
and maybe they get answered,
Okay.
and maybe I can answer them if they're not answered. But I'll try my best. So. So then the other things is just there's water efficiency things that they go through. They use sustainable materials and do construction to environmental quality that can be met indoors as well. With, as you can see here, the VOCs and paints and those type of things, task lighting. They try and maximize the lighting needs with windows and natural lighting.
Okay.
And then, so that was the last slide, but I will try and answer your questions.
I apologize. I missed something early. Which one? Can you clarify the LEED versus the HP BS in the inside and outside the buildings? Which one has which qualifications?
So to build the LEED standards, you have to, basically you have like a package or selections that you have to choose to fulfill the obligations. And so you can check this box, but you have to have so many points to add up. And Jim probably actually knows more about this because he's been working on it through the fire station. But you basically have to have all of the options that you choose add up to a certain point level, which would meet the silver requirement. Some of those are outside, some are inside. But the big difference with the high performance building is that they just focus mainly inside. They do, I mean, you can do sustainable things for the outside of the building, but the focus really is more on the inside, meeting the life cycle of the building and having sustainable materials. And
Having limited knowledge, obviously. I'm
Me
learning
too.
through the discussion. But my initial thoughts is that would worry me a little bit. I mean, my husband's he's an engineer, so he's talked about permeable surfaces and parking lots and sidewalks and how they affect runoff and environment. So to me, it is a lesser requirement if it's only looking at inside, outside. But before we get into that, can you clarify for me, is the current LEED silver certification required in the MCC zone only for the public buildings or for all buildings in the area?
correct, just for public buildings.
Okay, so we're just talking about city buildings
And-
that we're paying tax dollars for, not
Right, and it is
everyone.
highly encouraged for private facilities to be built to this standard, but it's not a requirement.
Because my initial concern was, it seems like by putting that in place, Murray is asking other companies to check and make sure this is quality buildings instead of us having to go in and supervise and make sure it's quality and consistently quality. So I was worried about taking away the certification because then things could easily slip in quality for the whole area, not just the city buildings. But if it's just city buildings, we'll keep tabs on it,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah, and another thing that often happens too with the LEED certification is that people get annoyed by the sustainability, I guess, components that have been built into the building, like push the water and it stays on for a certain amount of time to wash their hands. And
not long
like at
enough
a
either.
fire station, they get annoyed with that because they're doing more than just a public, and so they end up making alterations to the plumbing and you lose the level, or you get annoyed with the task lighting, and so you bring in different lighting. So a lot of times buildings actually kind of through attrition and modifications, because people get annoyed with the sustainability requirements, that it ends up not maintaining the certification as well.
Just very briefly, I'm messing part of the microphone, that's why it keeps doing that. Paulson Construction, who's building our fire station 81, they've indicated that exactly what Melinda is saying to us. They actually have done 2 new fire stations in the West Valley the last couple of years, plus remodeling another one. And the 2 new ones, they built to a certain standard. I don't know if it was LEED silver or LEED bronze, the different levels they haven't said. But it's been annoying for them because the firefighters, right, when they're not fighting fires, they're finishing basements, I'm an electrician, they all have these other things they do on the side. They keep kind of fixing things and changing things, and then the contractors have to go back and fix what they've done to make it obtain that level. It's been a real problem for them. In this case, it's been Paulson because it's still under warranty, so they're having to go back there almost weekly and make little adjustments.
Somebody needs to be a better supervisor.
Can I make
That sounds to me like
can I make a point of clarification? We're already vested in our rights on the fire station, so we
That's
already have
correct.
to build to that standard.
That's
We're
correct.
not going to be able to
Right,
defer
this
back
is
to
just
that.
That's
for the
correct.
new city hall.
That's correct. So we are building to a silver LEED standard with the fire station because all the plans have been done
And are we going to
reviewed.
maintain that standard?
We are going to build to the silver LEED standard.
Okay.
But we're not going
And
to,
then let it
but we're
lapse.
not going to certify.
Okay.
That's the case.
We have
but-
to certify though, don't we? We just don't have to recertify.
Right, I think so.
We don't have to certify. We're only required to build to a
Ah,
silver LEED standard, but not pay the 1% to certify.
So then all the modifications and everything you're talking about are not going to be a concern in our fire station because we
Well,
don't, or
they
the
will be
cost.
because we have to build to the standard.
No, we have to
first.
build to it, but we don't have to get certified.
We don't have to
So
make-
we don't care. Right, so we don't care what happens after that
Right.
if the guy
This would just be for
jerry
the
rigs the
new
sink
s-
to stay
the
on
new
longer.
city offices.
This is a city hall.
I would like to say I'm very, very hesitant about this when it was first brought up, and I think I indicated that at the last meeting. I don't always think that the Utah way is the better way. However, I did take quite a bit of time to look at these standards, and I'm not intimately familiar with the LEED standards and the different levels. However, through my work and talking with some other individuals that are LEED certified as far as enforcing these regulations, I was quite impressed with the overall intent of the standards and that. And if we build to these standards, I personally am comfortable with this. I just get frustrated on a personal level that the rest of the country, the rest of the world is attaining a certain standard and taking pride in it, and we kind of rip it off and say, here we go, this is the Utah way. That's just a personal statement. So, but I would like to repeat, I really do, I'm impressed with the standards they've incorporated in this level of facility.
The
building.
HPBS?
Yes, the local, the one designed here by the, whatever the agency, the Division of Facilities and Construction Management, yes. Yes, it is quite thorough, and they seem to have, addressed most of the components of LEED certification, at least at some level.
And this, as I mentioned, I mean, it's been kind of a backwards situation, but it's already been vetted through the council. They're supportive of the change. They think that the change will still accomplish the spirit of sustainability, but it'll also be more conscientious with the taxpayer dollars and what we would be spending. And then the next steps, will be, actually Doug will be presenting this next week to the MCCD, and then it'll end up obviously back to the council for their action.
Just one more brief comment. 1%, $250,000. I guarantee you the project is going to go over by more than 1%. So that number doesn't serve as a justification to me at all for a project of that size. But I do appreciate the fact that they're looking at trying to conserve funds wherever possible. But there are going to be additions and complications and cost overruns and labor problems and material problems that will far exceed 1%.
I'm behind on the conversation, so I apologize. That's why I have so many questions. And I also want to express that I greatly appreciate this process. I like that we all take the time to problem solve and play devil's advocate. That way, that's how Murray gets to great solutions. So I'm not trying to poo-poo the process. I'm trying to play devil's advocate and learn as much as I can. From the points that were brought up earlier, I'd like to know more. If we do say we'd like to build to LEED standards, could we not get certified or not recertified, just say we build to the standards?
That's what's going to happen with the fire station.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we need to change to HPBS? Why can't we just say
It
we
is more
build?
cost effective.
It's 1%.
And-
Can we
and
use that
even-
1% savings to hire more code enforcement?
Yes.
Well, and let me be a little bit more explanatory about, so the 250,000 in savings wouldn't necessarily be because we're not building to those exact LEED standards. There would be additional cost savings that would be realized because we're using these standards versus the LEED. The $250,000 would be what we would save by not actually certifying and going through that process of getting that gold stamp.
I understand.
Just to understand.
Silver stamp.
And so, well, yes, silver, you're right. And so,
Gold's
you know,
$1 million.
it very well could be in
Bronze
the
is
end that we're still
$1.50.
accomplishing is sustainability, but we're spending $2 million less because we're not working towards those more stringent standards. And I am throwing out funny math, which I'm really good at. The actual math, like accounting, don't let me at that. But the funny math, yes. So I think to answer your question or to give discussion point to that, I think there are greater cost savings that we're realizing by putting this in other than just the actual cost of certification in that process. And I think it's really, in the end, it's a more genuine and sincere process because we're not saying, well, we're going to build it but disregard the whole process that has been set up by LEED and kind of just ignore that there is that process.
It's always better to be upfront.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have one?
I was just going to make one comment. I don't understand all the building codes, and I probably never will. And I'm supportive of, I trust the city and people that are smarter than me. The issue I have is just, it just appears on the surface. It's like, well, we just don't want to build to that standard because we want it to be responsible use of taxpayer monies, which is fine because obviously we're all taxpayers. But it only applies to government buildings, right? And so the message we're sending is, okay, if the government wants to save money, we're going to change our ordinance. We're going to change it. But, we're not necessarily the same when businesses come in. We look at it a little bit more like, nope, that's the standard. You need to adhere to that standard. And even if they want to save money, even if they have a case that says, well, I need to save money on this. And to Phil's point, we can't guarantee that we're going to really save money. So I guess I just kind of look at it like, why are we doing it? What's the real purpose of it? Just from a transparency standpoint, that's what I first saw. Is this looks like the city's trying to do something to save money, but yet we don't necessarily always treat the public the same way. So that's, I guess, my 2 bits on it. And I'm sure I'm missing some things and don't understand, but it's just my opinion. So. Didn't mean to be a buzzkill or anything. That's just the observation.
It wasn't
I'm just processing everything.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil.
And again, the requirement in the ordinance has been for government buildings.
Right.
We're not changing or lessening the requirement for government buildings, but leaving a more stringent requirement for private sector. There's an encouragement there, but not a requirement.
And my comment wasn't necessarily just about LEED. It was just more, it appears that, we want to save some money, so we're trying to change the standard. Where we're not always as friendly for businesses and residents when they ask the same thing.
Sure.
So.
Yep, I agree. think the pause after you said that was not because it was a bummer, it's just because it's so well said. I'm afraid to speak.
I don't know.
The city is suggesting going from silver to a different system. Has there been any discussion with the lead about the different levels? I mean, my first thought, not knowing enough about the topic, was why didn't we just go down to bronze and keep within the lead? Still equally expensive.
Yeah, and again, it's just kind of like, you go and copy and paste a Mickey Mouse cartoon off the internet and start using it as your own, and then you just have issues with, the intention versus the purpose and the copyright laws. And I don't know if, Brian, you've been involved in much of this, but I think in the end it's about the sincerity and being the forthcoming that we're not going to try. We're going to do something different because it's more cost efficient. And so to kind of come out and say, well, we're still gonna kind of do it. We're going to do the high performance to the standards that are required. But if we go the other route, it's going to be, we're going to kind of, but not really do it.
So it's kind of hypocrisy either way, really. Yeah, I mean, if we want to be honest with it. Can
I butt in for just one
Please.
second?
Absolutely.
I thought you were going to headbutt me. I think can I headbutt you for 1 minute? And I'd be like, come on, Jared, let's go.
There are members of architects who feel and have felt for years that LEED is not
A panacea.
it's not
Right.
a panacea,
Right.
and it's kind of a constant take, and in some cases takes resources that would be better spent in other ways because of the constant reassessment. And that as a planner, you'll recognize this. There's the same kind of group among planners that feel that way about AICP. Does it really prove that you did the greatest thing just because you have that behind your name, and you have to, or is it a scam that you just keep paying for and paying for and paying for? And there's two schools of thought, but it's not uncommon for some architects not to feel like LEED is some end-all be-all, and this is maybe an appropriate response to it for the state to come up with its own standards that don't require the recertification over and over again. And to Lisa's point about the outside stuff, outside the building, and we don't have that necessarily with the HP, I'm going to get the acronym wrong, so I'll remove that as well. But, yeah, your MCCD standards at least, not so much with the other two zones we're looking at with the BP zone and the PO zone, but your MCCD standards are rife with suggested and encouraged requirements to do permeable paving, where it's possible to do low impact development, standards for drainage, et cetera. And we're looking at all that kind of thing all the time anyway for new buildings in MCCD. You guys might remember the Box Elder, corner Box Elder and Vine Street where we did the senior apartments. Their pavers where they were going to do the on-street parking, all of those pavers were permeable because that was a standard that we asked them to meet, and they agreed to do that. And they had low impact biosphenols throughout the site. Those are still in place,
Right.
even without LEED. We'd still be doing those kind of things. We just wouldn't be checking boxes to get that certification.
And Jared brings up a good point with the fire station. We're actually doing a charging station. But that doesn't mean we can't do a charging station in front of City Hall as well. I mean, why wouldn't we? I mean, you see those at movie theaters, you see those at drugs, all over the place now. A bicycle rack, these are all part of the point system. And they're things that we can encourage and require people to do in those areas. Once again, we're just in the MCCD, 97 acres total, civic type buildings and uses. We encourage it of the private sector. We encourage it in the BP and the professional office, the new startup zones, by the private sector development in those areas too. They could tell us we're not doing that, but that doesn't mean we won't encourage it. But some of these things, the other thing is solar. Can we get solar? Will the power department work with us to achieve solar and sustainability on buildings in the future?
I think the council could help with that.
Yeah,
that
and
was
so
the goal.
it's one that we really wanted on the fire station, and we weren't able to achieve it, but that doesn't mean we can't on new buildings. So there are these things that we, that are works in progress that we will work to achieve. We will work with people to get the things that we feel are needed and necessary.
And Jim, just to your comment about you would get the acronym wrong.
Yeah.
I love the acronym because it's High Performance Building Standards,
Yeah.
HPBS.
You know, you're the second one that brought up the last two letters in that acronym this week.
Not the first one.
The other thing is though, this is administered, or the program was created by the state of Utah. So all public institutions, new buildings at Utah State, the University of Utah, Weber State, they're built to this standard. So.
All right, so that was a great discussion.
It depends.
Appreciate your concerns, and I want to ask if there are any other questions before I do that.
Open for public comment.
All right. So we'll open this for public comment. Any public comment regarding this item? Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment period and ask if there's additional discussion or if you'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm shocking myself by making a recommendation that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the proposed text amendments to the Murray City Land Use Ordinance, Sections 17.170.040, 17.170.090, 17.173.010, and 17.174.010 Sustainable Development Practices in the Murray City Center District, MCCD, the Business Park District, BP, and the Professional Office District, PO.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second? I have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Jared, would you call a vote, please?
Yes.
Before I vote, I'm just going to say I think that we are really, I think we're letting down the MCCD zone. I believe that it's our flagship zone, and it's just not quite as good as it was. Yes.
And I will also pontificate before my vote. We just need to be fair. You know, let's take the same approach. Let's just call it what it is. We're trying to save money. We're changing the standard to save money, and we should just treat everyone the same way. Look at everything and say, look, if you want to save money and it doesn't have a minimal impact or much of an impact, then do it. So I will say yes. So.
Ms. Wilson,
Oh, boy. Yes.
Ms. Milkevich,
I want to say, oh boy, also, and then I'll say yes.
Yes.
There's no yes with conviction. So it sounds like it's 6 yeses with an asterisk. It's in downtrodden, resigned, whatever city.
Yes-ish.
It's
Yeah.
very volunteer.
I just wish you would have asked me last.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any other business this evening?
I don't have any. Do you, Jared?
no, just, we have some things coming up. You guys, I'm always proud of how you function as a commission, that you would express your concerns about it and not be bashful about that. Think it through as well as you have.
Yes,
Make
thank
sure it
you.
makes it into the minutes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, second. We're adjourned. Thank you.